Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and John Clark. And this is the Conservative Five, an online TV production of Liberty Nation News. RFK Jr. is America's darling right now. He is physically fit, smart as a whip, and on a mission to make America healthy again. And I think it's about time this country prioritizes healthy foods over toxic poison that has been allowed to flourish thanks in part to big tobacco and our own government. But other people are spooked at the fervor and passion Kennedy brings to the Trump administration. John Clark, we've had a million conversations about this. Both of us are rural livers, and we do want to go back to a healthy lifestyle. This panel has had a lot of conversations as well, kind of offline. But to revamp the food system, that takes an aggressive leader, which I'd give Kennedy that, but it also entails a lot of moving parts.
Well, it does, and yes, I do have a rural liver. Or you said we're rural livers. Yeah. And so there are some interesting.
You should have said lifestyle.
Well. So you mentioned people being anxious about RFK's position on certain medical interventions, let us say, or vaccine hesitancy, and yet that's a very different subject from food health. And what I found interesting as a person who's, I guess you'd call me a foodie, or a person who's certainly trying to, along with him, and I don't think it matters what party one's in, alert people more to what's in their food and how to eat healthily to prevent disease and other illnesses. And so some people who really can't stand RFK over his vaccine positions actually say, well, I hate the guy, but he's right about glyphosate, and he's right about the toxins in the food, and he's right about large corporations dominating industrial agriculture. So that in itself is already an interesting sort of informational dichotomy. But think about what RFK standing up on Maha next to Donald Trump and MAGA represents. It represents a melding of perhaps libertarian interests and walkaways. I mean, he's literally a walkaway. He ran as a Democrat. The libertarians who he went and visited them for their convention, they love him. They want one of theirs in there. So he's kind of got that on his coattails. But he also stood up for a new message, MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, which is an environmental policy which conservatives desperately need. So it continues to be a thread of this administration. And you're right, there are moving parts. HHS may be vaccine oversight, but it's also FDA, EPA. It's about glyphosate, atrazine, phthalates, and PFAs, whether they're regulated when they go into our food supplies. And then, oh my, it's the USDA. So if you don't have the moving part of the USDA and that aspect of food supply, which has nothing to do, by the way, with vaccines or those things that seem to be the hot button issues for Kennedy, but that's also in a battle right now. We're still watching this battle unfold with cabinet picks. But so I think that it's a very interesting and fascinating political development to see Americans push towards unifying in nonpartisan ways over making their children's food healthier. And by the way, there are two other aspects of MAHA I would point out. One is that it's shifting the discussion away from the focus on net zero and carbon dioxide to forever chemicals that accumulate in our children's bodies, thousands of them. And in another fashion, it's shifting the entire perspective of the Republican Party and what they represent. And in the process, it's highlighting the problems with renewable energy that many of the chemicals being generated with solar panels and EV cars, as we've been writing about here at Liberty Nation for a while, actually have environmental consequences. They're called ecotoxins. So MAHA is shifting the entire thing. And it's also a very different food movement from the food movement, let's say, of the 1920s and 30s, where you had a certain movement in Nearings and others in Vermont and elsewhere. And then in the 70s, driven by economics and the oil crisis, there was a back to the land movement. Well, that was economic. And this one's health driven. We've had a lot of changes in our food system since the 70s, and here are the Republicans and Kennedy leading on an issue that the Democrats have just missed because they only have one issue. And they've had Vilsack in there twice now, who's a friend of Big Ag. So this is a seismic shift politically and socially, and it's here to stay. And I think it's very important for our nation, and it has huge bipartisan potential on the food issue. Maybe not so much on the vaccine issue.
Okay, so then we got the politics figured out on that. But Andrew, what does America want? Don't they want to just go through the McDonald's line and get something? Burger King?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it reminds me of that documentary that came out, Super Size Me. And everyone, when people watched that picture, I think it was 20 years ago. I was in junior high when it came out. Everyone said, "Oh, I'm not going to eat Big Macs anymore. That's terrible." And then within a week, they go back to eating Big Macs. So yes, in theory, people think this is a wonderful idea, but whether it's going to be reality remains to be seen. But I will give credit to conservatives, though. They're really taking the lead on this issue. Because throughout my whole life, when it comes to healthy food eating, it was always those hippies who went to Whole Foods and spent $20, buying asparagus water. My concern, however, I mean, I agree with John 100%. If you watched Swamponomics a couple of months ago, we had a great discussion on it, and I'm all for using avocado oil and abandoning seed oil and not eating this garbage that our children consume regularly. But here's my question, though. Maybe John can answer this one. We have a lot of food. The United States has a lot of food insecurity. The whole world has a lot of food insecurity. There was a study by the USDA that said in 2023, 15% of U.S. households, about 20 million households, were at some point food insecure. Now, when you try to eat healthy, it's very expensive to do so. I remember you told me in our conversation that people should be spending more on their foods, but the average person can't spend $10 on free-range organic eggs, or they can't spend, whatever it is, though, that RFK imports Italian flour. The average person cannot do that. So how would you separate the healthy food eating with the basic economics of cost?
Very quickly, because I don't want to eat into others' time, but
Oh,
well, you did it. You set me up to do it. We can do it. The single biggest thing that this country could do, that RFK is on top of, and hopefully Donald Trump will be as well, is convert some of the subsidies to large industrial food away towards healthier products. How about if SNAP benefits were linked to not ultra-processed foods, but healthier foods? We are literally subsidizing hydrogenated fats and high fructose corn syrup and sugar with billions and billions of dollars that could be shifted into preventive improvements to our health, and particularly sourcing more local and healthy foods for schools, for SNAP program benefits. There's a lot that could be done, including cleaning up huge amounts of waste and spending. The USDA, about 80% of its budget is the SNAP program. And so,
This is a conservative 2. That's a conservative 5.
Well, that was the question. That was the quick answer. Sorry.
Oh, it's not quick. Anyway.
Right.
Oh, Dave.
It's a difficult question. It's not nice.
Jeez, Dave, they don't want you to talk.
Welcome, Dave.
How did
great. How you doing today? What's going on? Okay.
How did it get so bad? I mean, when did things all go to preservatives and poison? Even the fast food industry has changed their oils and grossed out the meat that they don't, I don't know. When did it get bad? What happened?
Oh, Sarah, I'm going to be a contrarian here. I'm not sure the food is so bad. Like, anything humans touch, we have the capacity to make it dangerous, but we also have the capacity to make it safe and beneficial. Let's, put your way back hat on. For example, 160 years ago, people were getting deathly ill from raw milk that had pathogens like Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria, and a thing called Campylobacter that caused food poisoning. Well, coincidentally, 160 years ago, Louis Pasteur figured out that if you take raw milk, heat it to 161 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 seconds, and then bring it back to a temperature around 39 degrees, that it kills most, if not all, of the pathogens resulting in food poisoning from milk and milk products.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What about breast milk? That's pasteurized. And those are toxins, and, everything that a mother takes in is going right back out. So
and you find that there is a greater incidence of not food poisoning necessarily, but Salmonella and Listeria particularly. And what you do in order to prevent that is make sure your cows, goats are pathogen free, and you can keep them as clean as you possibly can. Some preservatives, are bad for humans, but not all are in appropriate amounts, and that's the point. Trans fats are supposedly banned in the U.S. because they have a link to heart disease. But butylated hydroxyanisole or BHS, besides being kind of hard to say, has mixed reviews. Some say it's linked to cancer, but it's also used in butter, cereal, cookies, and meat to prevent the food from becoming rancid. That's a good thing. The bottom line for me is that all things in moderation, well, except for arsenic and strychnine, which I try to stay away from.
That is your take on all this? Oh, Dave. We're going to
Give me a Big Mac. You have to have a Tiberius and Arby's classic any day.
And I'm drinking raw milk. So just so you know, I've never, I want all these, I don't want pasture to kill all my good bacteria.
Yeah, well,
How about the microbiome?
stay close to the commode, Clark.
I've been drinking raw cream for a long time in my coffee. A lot of people feed their kids straight out of the goat milk. If as long as you know what the goat or the cow is eating and how they're cared for, there is nothing wrong with raw. Grant, just jump in here and let's change the direction. Can Republicans get on board with a Kennedy in the hen house?
Yes, I think they can, and I think they will. And as I wrote about recently in the pages of LibertyNation.com, I believe they will, because when he was running for president, he built what I described as a big tent team. He brought in people that were kind of surprising, even caught some of his supporters by surprise, although I think they kind of warmed to it very quickly. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was one of those individuals. He was maybe the pivotal figure in Trump's kind of outreach beyond the, if you like, the MAGA world, the what we've come to know as the MAGA world. And I think for Republicans to for Republicans to allow the confirmation of Kennedy to be sabotaged or to sink, I think would be such a slap in the face to everything Trump is trying to do this time around. And I don't think they'll do it. So I think even those few Republicans who have misgivings about Kennedy because, he's skeptical of certain vaccines. And I believe my personal opinion is rightfully so. And also, he's not zealously anti-abortion either. He's not particularly pro-abortion, but he's not in favor of, kind of blanket bans on abortion access. And I believe that gives a few kind of conservative Republicans a bit of a shock. But I believe that I guess bottom line is I would actually be surprised if even a single Republican refused to vote to confirm Kennedy.
Well, that's good to know. I think I like the team. I like the blending of different people, and I don't know. I think that was a good answer too. A Healthy America seems to be the most bipartisan effort in 2 decades. Now let's see if everyone can agree on how to get it all done. Thanks for tuning in, and stay healthy, everybody. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for the latest news and commentary. Your choice for free thinking, free speech, LibertyNation.com.